All right, so here's my short-ish story for Porky's Big Adventure. I originally had the idea and a dream of, it wasn't really a snowmobile. I don't even know what it was, but um, it was going down a mountain. It was like a vehicle, but it wasn't a snowmobile. It might have been something similar, but there was a race with snowmobiles down a mountain around this sharp turn. Um, and then I was taking it too fast. I was driving in like a snowmobile, but it wasn't a snowmobile. Um, but I drove off the side of the cliff, tumbled down, and then when I came back, or when I stayed asleep the whole time. Um, I died and came back as a cat. And then I came up with a story of what if that cat was a porcupine at the end of this race. And then at the end of that story, he has his own little adventure as a talking porcupine. So that's how this came about. All right, so Porky's Big Adventure. The previous story was about Alta's 100-year anniversary, which hasn't happened yet. It's in the future. But there's a snowmobile race with skis on the bottom of the snowmobiles, so you could turn, get on edge with them, and everything. And then at the end, I transformed it to porcupine, and that's how the story kind of started. So Alta's 100th year anniversary was a big success, minus the fatality. The silver lining was that we got a new porcupine in our life. His full name was Walter White, but he liked to go by either Walter or Porky to the people that knew him. He had 10,000 more quills than the average porcupine, so his name was an ironic one. He was given that name in honor of the human that transformed into him, me, who was balding very early in life. I normally shave, but I had an ACL tear, so I have a crutch. I'm on one crutch now, kind of sidetrack, but I've been able to walk today without the crutch, mostly, not very fast, and go up and down stairs with like barely using it. Anyways, been lazy with the beard and all that lately, understandably, but God blessed him with so many quills that he may carry that name in fun. After the ski snowmobile race, Porky celebrated on the patio, dancing the day away. No one had seen a porcupine dance before, so he was quite the novelty that day. 8-Ball was putting on a show, and Walter was given front stage for that celebratory day. They tossed him in the air, and people were even able to take him on the lift with them, and they made special boots and blades so that he could ski down on. He was even able to make it to High Boy and ski down the now bombed Baldy that the stealth bombers so proudly made safe. It was a long and tiresome day for him. The food wasn't ending, and he ate all the crudité and crackers that could fit in his little belly before saying bye to everyone for just that day, or so they thought. Going back to this, High Boy and Baldy, those are two. Well, High Boy's a outside wrestler in Alta, and Baldy is it's a run. But Baldy's a mountain, and it has a chute called Baldy Chutes. There's a couple of them, or a few of them actually. And then that was one, I just started skiing last year and kind of got addicted to it. It was definitely my favorite run I've ever did. The snow was just perfect. It was super steep, and it was amazing. And 8-Ball's a DJ over there from Alta. All right, Porky felt like he was missing something in life. He wasn't sure what it was, but he thought somewhere out there in the big new world he would find what he was looking for. So as his goodbyes were made, he took last chair and scuttled himself up to Baldy on his new blades and skinned up to the top. There he enjoyed the picturesque sunset. Slowly closing his eyes, he saw the mountaintops take on a shade of orange and the clouds as deep as the crimson sun that was done for the day, just like Porky. With wafts of fresh air cleaning out his lungs, he meditated for a bit, then fell into a deep rest. He woke up well before the sun did and began to stretch his little body and do a sweet, comforting yawn. What was he to do today? Well, his first mission of the day was to ski down to Roller Coaster, another run, and see if the other little porcupines were over there. I always used to go, it's a run off Sugarloaf Lift, where you could for a while there, I was seeing them like every day, just one or two, most of the time one, but one day I saw three, so it was pretty crazy. Anyways, and see if the other little porcupines were over there. So he decided to make the trek there via Baldy, and boy, was it deep. His head was so small that even a foot of powder would have been up to his head. He had the run of his life, enjoying a moonlit run down to Ballroom, where he then decided it was time to make the trek up Main Street. Another run. It was a nice and peaceful walk up there with the sun beginning to wake from its slumber. The trees began to wave their branches as if saying, "Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful day outside." As he made it to the top, he sat and saw Ski Patrol getting their day started. He waved and everyone took pictures of him. He was sort of shy when it comes to groups of people, but he knew it made them happy. So he did a little dance and said goodbye to everyone. He told them he had plans to go meet other porcupines and they let him go on his way without much more being said. He was smiling and laughing all the way down. Over the rollers he went and past the knoll down to the place he often visited in a past life as a human. He turned to the right into the trees and began to smell around for signs of his fellow species. As he stood there on his hind legs, he couldn't get a sense of anything else around him. Where did everyone go, he thought to himself. Porky was beginning to wonder, but as he was in no rush, he took off his blades, hid them in snow nearby, and went to the tallest tree and began to climb. And climb he did, until he was at the top of the tallest tree, sniffing, searching with his little beady eyes. Not even from up there he was able to get a glimpse of any signs of life. So he took a little nap on top of one of the upper branches and decided to make this his little home. While in his slumber, he dreamt of faraway mountains in the desert with overlooks of vast barrenness, giving wonder to a life of what could be. The sun was bright, and there he found some sticky memories. The frosty trees began to thaw, and his heart felt warm in his sleep. He saw birds flying and little armadillos waddling across the road from far below. Is that where his heart was telling him to go? To the wild West Texas mountains? He woke up to be greeted by the warmth of children laughing and parents telling him, "Look up there, how adorable." That was his cue to get down from the tree and act as natural as a porcupine could. He waved his little arms, not remembering that porcupines don't normally wave their arms. He couldn't have made it any more obvious that something was queer about him, so everyone was watching in disbelief, laughing in a wondrous manner and saying, "What is going on here?" The kids, however, were enjoying themselves, seeing this little animal appear to do things only humans do. So he ran towards them to play, and the parents quickly shouted, "No, don't go near him." And they quickly skied away. He forgot he had quills, and they probably were afraid Porky would hurt them. Embarrassed by drawing too much attention to himself, he began to wonder if being a porcupine in Alta was too much for him, as he still had a lot of human tendencies he needed to forget, or at least go somewhere much less visited. Either way, he decided to dig up his skis and etch into them with his little claws. "Thank you, everyone, but Walter White is going away." He wasn't ready to leave Alta yet, but hopefully he could at least blend in with other porcupines for the time being until he figured out what he wanted to do. So he ate some bird seeds and some tree bark and started waddling away. His chapter begins. He wandered far and wide throughout Alta, first stopping over by off Summer Road and one of the bird feeders over there. Although the morning sunshine made his journey all the more wonderful, he didn't spot any fellow porcupines, so he went off to the one over by Dipsy Doodle. Still no luck. He then ventured for the long trek over to Funland. His little paws were trudging through the deep snow like a bird through a strong headwind, slow and steady, but sure in his ways. Before crossing the Big Dipper, he waited in a snowbank and made sure to look and listen for any skiers to keep his journey peaceful. Once he was sure the coast was clear, he scuttled on over past Rock and Roll and dipped the ropes to Funland area. After all, Ski Patrol can't stop a porcupine other than to stop him to say hi. Big Dipper and Rock and Roll are other runs at Alta. And then Funland's like a little area kind of set off from the main runs, kind of tucked away. Has a lot of little jumps, that you can do. And yeah. With his journey around Alta coming to a close, he settled up at the tree that he often visited as a human. Looking at the big note to his right, he noticed it was time for another snack. Or he decided it was time for another snack. So he found some branches to munch on and was quietly admiring the grandeur of the trees when he dozed off for a mid-afternoon nap. Then his time to shine was on. Ski school brought some students and happened to wake him up from his slumber. Yawning, he could hear everyone awing at the cute little sight they saw. "The little porcupine is yawning," someone exclaimed, and everyone seemed to notice a little smile from usually shy porcupines. But Porky was no usual one, as we all know. After their amusement at him passed, they went along their way, and he was back out to his search. Up he went, towards the highest point of the sturdy, broad tree in order to get a better glance as before. Halfway up, he heard some noises, rustling of leaves, and a faint sound of breathing. He paused and looked around. There on one of the upper limbs, he noticed a family of 3 porcupines, a mama, a papa, and a baby. He rushed in excitement and faltered, mistakenly putting his weight on a branch that was far too thin to support him, and he took a tumble down the tree, bouncing from limb to limb until he reached the fluffy white snow, embracing him ever so dearly. He could hear the mother, in porcupine tongue, tell her husband to go check to see if he was okay. He could picture in his mind that the father rolled his eyes, but he gracefully climbed down anyways and checked on our little Porky. Buried in the snow, he popped his head out and he could hear a sigh of relief. But there he was, his goal complete, face to face with another porcupine. He quickly shoveled himself out after affirming he was okay. Then Porky started to introduce himself and told his story of how he came to be in Funland. Roger, the father, could hardly believe his ears. A human? Or a previous human? His little brain could hardly make heads or tails of the situation he found himself in. So, out of good hospitality, he brought little Porky up to meet his family. Ella was the mother's name, said she was so delighted to see Porky doing okay after that long and seemingly nasty fall. Corduroy, the baby, was too shy and could speak too little porcupine speech to say anything, so Porky just said, "Hi, little buddy." But Corduroy went behind Ella for the rest of the time and just peeked his head out for sheer curiosity from time to time. He explained his story to Ella as well, while mentioning what a nice escape this is, far from the nosy humans. Both Roger and Ella agreed, and asked what his plans are. Well, Porky himself didn't know, but for the time being, he asked if he could stay in the tree for the rest of the day while he gets his thoughts together. They politely agreed, and they just chatted about all the things going on in Funland, with some stories about their lives, including the time Roger got drunk from a group of skiers' beer stash that was forgotten one time and fell from the tree just like Porky. He also mentioned how some skiers would come by and would be seemingly be smoking fire. Roger said all the humans who smoked this fire appeared to have an unusual smelling breath. This, however, was how the tree got its name, the tree of wisdom and of folly. As all the porcupines who ever went here, while the people with the strange smelling breaths were there, became contemplative or went into non-stop giggling. Porky began to explain what the magic substance was, and Roger felt a little silly. After lots of chatting about the fun times in Alta, they agreed it was nap time, so they could wake up and see the sunset. Since it was still so early in the season, Funland was pretty quiet, and they didn't get disturbed at all from their slumber. But just as humans can wake up at their usual time without alarm sometimes, porcupines are the same. So just as the sun was beginning to set, Roger woke up everyone to see Mother Nature's evening colors. From the high branches of the tree, nature seemed to be most alive, though it was settling down for the day. Porky began to realize what he wanted to do, explore the lands far beyond ski resort boundaries. So, he told Roger and Ella that he appreciated their hospitality, but he must be on his way. With the bittersweet departing of his newfound friends, he waddled down the tree and started heading away, following the wind in his heart. He had an idea where to start: the West Texas mountains. It is cold there during the winter, but sort of a respite from the harsh Utah snowstorms. It is around 850 miles as the crow flies, and he planned on taking at least a month to get there before his journey was done. So he set off into the night, hopefully ready for what was to come. A long journey into the unknown. He wandered quite late into the night. His goal was to stay on the ridgeline all the way to Provo Peak. a mountain so majestic one believes they walked straight off the peak, straight off the earth, and onto Mount Olympus. Not off the peak, off the earth. As the night grew long, he stopped every so often to get a bite to eat, slowly making his way up to the ridge overlooking Mineral Basin. Mineral Basin's, it's like the meeting point of Alta and Snowbird. It's right below Bali, and yeah. And if you see me typing, I'm adding stuff because I'm reading it for the first time. So just kind of adding words that I'm adding in as I speak. Slowly making his way up to the ridge overlooking Mineral Basin, he turned back and waved bye to everyone in Alta. Then he turned onwards and found himself trudging through deep snow, for it was covered far and wide in the champagne powder. After many hours of the night, he finally came to a resting point, about 10 miles north of Mount Timpanogos. He laid his little paws on the ground beneath a tall tree and began to bury himself a little in the hole in the ground where he could rest. It was a lot of work to build a hiding spot away from any mountain lions or eagles that were searching for a nice juicy meal, but he knew it was important to get cover for the rest of the night. The darkness still would cover these mountains for a few hours yet, and he was getting paranoid with the eerie quiet of the night. At last he was done, and just in time, for as soon as he tucked into his hole, he heard the swooshing of a large bird come right above his spot. He breathed a sigh of relief and tucked in for the evening. Yet that was not the end of that. After a minute or so, he was resting his eyes. He heard a great kerfuffle of sounds as if someone was trying to dig into his hole. The hawk was back, and it started to caw and claw away at his little boat. He was stuck in terror at this newfound enemy. He could only see some wretched claws trying to tear its way inside, and then saw a beak. So quickly Porky went into action, burrowing a little further in the snow until finally the rustle from the great bird was no more. It accepted his defeat, and he only wished that all the other porcupines that night were as safe as he was. So, after listening for a few minutes and hearing nothing, he rested his eyes for the night. The rest of the evening was quiet, but in the morning he woke up to noises above his house. Could it be another hawk, or even the same hawk to hunt him down? He waited patiently for any more sounds. He then heard voices, human voices. He never had been so glad to hear human voices, so he got out of his little tunnel and looked upon them. They were so surprised and happy to see Porky. It was J.D. and Tyler, his old friends from when he was human, way out in the back country. They didn't know it was him until he said hello. Startled, they asked each other how a porcupine could talk, and they said, "It's James." They asked how Porky was doing, and he said, "I'm going on an adventure. I don't know when I'll return or where I'll end up, but I'll remember the good times we had forever." They wished their little buddy good luck on his journey, and he waved goodbye. As he was walking away, they asked if he wanted a ride down the mountain. He explained it would be a little detour, but since he had no clear way to get to Texas, what's the harm in a little fun pause in his journey? So he hopped in one of their backpacks, and could feel the rush of wind through his quills once more. They skied all the way down the mountain into the valley near Sundance. He was laughing the whole way down, and the stoke was ever so high. When he got to the bottom, he wished that they got the most snow ever that year, and kindly was on his way. So he walked through the valley past Sundance and started to make his way up towards Provo Peak. They didn't get as much snow over there, so this going was a lot easier, and he was able to stay camouflaged a little better. Along the way, he saw some porcupines off in the distance after he caught their scent, but realized the day doesn't go on forever, so he needed to keep on his journey, for he knew he'd see more on his way. Squirrels and chipmunks passed him aplenty as he waddled his way up towards Bridal Veil Falls. He loved waterfalls, and it was a perfect place to stop and rest for the day. The water soothed his mind and began to be in a trance-like state. Looking down into the river flowing below, he was at peace, eating some leaves and flowers. He stayed for quite a bit, and under the shade of a large tree, he took the opportunity to take another of the famous porcupine midday naps. In his dreams, he floated down the Mississippi River on a raft, with an oar in one hand and a pile of leaves in the river in the other hand. Snacking and flowing down the greatest river in the land until he came to a loud sound just ahead. Realizing it was a waterfall, he quickly tried to turn the raft towards the shore, but to no avail. He tried as hard as he could, yet the edge was getting closer. Soon he jumped out and tried to swim, but his arms and legs weren't moving. Just then, he felt weightless. Plummeting towards the ground, he woke up just in time before he hit the rocks. "Whew!" he exclaimed as he jumped up from his slumber. The midday was quiet. The wind was up too. He sniffed around the air to find other life around him. All he smelled was flowers. Flowers that were still in bloom, protected by the sunshine that funneled right to the waterfall. In the snow-capped mountains, there was a little sanctuary of warmth to greet him on his quest. So from there, after admiring nature's greatness, he proceeded to Squaw Mountain, remembering where God's grace fully shone to him in a former life. He reached as sunset was upon the wind-weathered rocks, the field of grass in the clouds, and the valley far below. He could sit here forever in eternity, he thought. Field of grass beneath the clouds and the valley far below. He could sit here forever in eternity, he thought. But after a week, he had an itch to press onwards after a snowstorm came and swept the land in a sea of white. He loved the snow, but he was ready for a warmer climate. After he had his fill of leaves, he departed south once more. Staying on this lower mountain range to make his trek a little easier, he then made the journey to the end of the Wasatch. It was night 2 days later when he finally got to the end of his beloved home mountains. In order to get a better view of the valley below, he climbed up the tallest tree he could. All was going well until, on one branch, he noticed lots of twigs, and the shape was in a bowl. What could be nesting here? Best not to wait and find out, he thought. But as he was weeble-wobbling the way down, he heard the swoop of an eagle passing by. "Whoa!" he exclaimed, as the second swoop was coming in quickly. No time to think. He did his best impression of Legolas mounting a horse in style by grabbing one of the eagle's claws and swooping up on its back. "Arrgh!" The eagle screamed in pain. "Let go of me!" Porky was not, and while the eagle was flailing around in the air, Porky wasn't sure what to do now, but letting go was not an option. He hung on as tightly as he could, digging his claw into the bald eagle's body. After a minute or so, the eagle said, "Enough, you win. I'll set you back to the earth and won't bother you again." Porky quickly devised the scheme. "No, I want to go to Texas, and you'll take me as far as you can." The eagle had no choice and said, "Fine. I'll take you to the border of Arizona, but if you so much as dig your claws into me once more, we both may perish." They had a mutual understanding. On one hand, if Porky wanted to get far, he had to trust that the eagle wouldn't try to fling him off once his grip loosened. The eagle had the power, but at that point, he was quite impressed that a porcupine managed to get on his back. So there they were, a majestic sight that no one would believe except God himself. It was a long leg of the journey. 2 moons had passed before the eagle finally made it there. Porky was thankful for the ride. Even though it was a deadly situation at the start, he was quick enough in thought to make it to Arizona as swift as eagle flies. As they were approaching the ground, the eagle yelled, "Now don't think that I enjoyed this thoroughly. If I ever see you back in Utah, I will get you when you least expect it. As long as you don't return, you have my word that I won't follow you." Porky agreed and asked for a shake of the claws to seal the deal. The eagle eagerly agreed, and instead of just trying to shake his claw, he grabbed the poor porcupine and started to fly up. Porky quickly jabbed his quills into the eagle's side, and down they both went. The now dying eagle was headed straight for the rocks. He had no choice but to let go and hope the landing in Lake Powell would break his fall. It's a lake right on the border of Arizona. I guess I don't really need to explain it, but yeah. Land of the Navajo. Splash, Porky went. He managed to get out of the water after panicking and was relieved to find solid ground once again. His heart took a while to settle down after the last few days, and luckily it wasn't the 110 degrees days that he would have found a few months back. But now that he made it to Arizona, he had 2 options. Take the longer route down the Colorado River to the forest, or make the trek east across the desert. Either way, he was in a tough spot, as he wasn't sure how the natives would react to seeing a porcupine. In all likelihood, he would be made into a headdress. So he realized the sooner he made it past the Navajo Nation, the better. So he decided to take the river down. As he was on dry land, his next task was to walk along the Glendenny Cam and wait for his next opportunity Glen Canyon Dam and wait for his next opportunity to hop back on the river. It was only a couple of miles until that opportunity presented himself, and he found a small log to ride, and though it was during the midday sun, he was shielded by the canyon walls from the harsh power of Helios's chariots. The river was too deep for any coyotes to attack him, and any eagle or hawk would have to fight him in the water if their first strike didn't land a kill, so he thought himself safe. As the day wore on and night began to wake, he found himself pleased with how his adventure was progressing. Already he could see the Texas desert in his dreams, the cactuses and the bees, the shrubs, and the solitude that is only possible miles from nowhere. Miles down the river, he was pretty starving, and he didn't know when the next bank he'd see was shrubs, so he disembarked and listened for people, anybody, to make sure the coast was clear before he could relax. Nobody seemed to be there, and he decided to make it a good place to rest for the evening. In the wee hours of the morning, as he was dreaming of a sunflower field and their tasty stems, there were Navajos that spotted him. They were taking a moonlit ride down the canyon to meet some other members of their tribe. Quiet and gently, they tread on the sand off the shore. They didn't know what it was yet, but it would add to their gifts. As they approached, they realized it was a porcupine. And at that moment, Porky woke up. Startled, he was frozen in terror. He would run to the water, but they could run faster. So he closed his eyes and accepted his fate. He waited for a few seconds, expecting to see the other side of life at any moment. He heard nothing, and when he opened his eyes, he assumed he already died, quickly but peacefully. But there they were, fierce warriors, all bent on the ground and bowing to him. Their bows were set on the soft earth, and he could hear them talking in their tongue. He wasn't sure what was going on, but he soon realized that porcupines must be treasured in the Navajo Nation. Yes, they must be, or he'd already be dead. After staring in amazement, they got up and motioned to him to get in their boat. He couldn't possibly turn down this offer, so he climbed in. In the dead of the night, all he heard was Mother Earth carrying them along past the barren land above. The Navajos reached their destination and waited for Porky to get out. He felt relieved that he was in guarded company and was delighted to go wherever they went. As the sun rose, they approached the camp, where he could see a golden eagle staring at him. He rushed behind one of his new friends, but one gracefully motioned the hawk to come to him, as one would call the dog. Set at ease, the porcupine gathered his courage again and proceeded to take a seat on a log they set down for him. I noticed, I said he saw a golden eagle, but the guy motioned a hawk. So, anyways, golden eagle. It's an eagle. Set at ease, the porcupine gathered his courage again and proceeded to take a seat on the log they set down for him. The chief came out, smoking his pipe, and his face lit up when they saw little Porky, and commanded the rest still talking in their hogan, it's a house made of earth and stone, to come out and greet him. He didn't understand their language, but everyone was thrilled to see him. They brought out a feast of corn and potatoes for him to munch on, and was merrily munching on his food while he watched everyone dance around. Their celebration lasted a whole day until sunset, where they seemed to be winding down for the day. He began to wonder how long they planned on keeping him there. It wasn't a bad life to live, but he didn't start on his journey to remain in Navajo land. No, his goal was Texas, so he went to one of the younger Navajos who was resting under the stars and hoped that they would understand some English. He talked in a hushed voice, not to startle everyone, and said, "Hello, do you speak English?" The young Indian, Paco, meaning eagle, looked around and didn't see anyone except for the porcupine. So he went back to sleep, beginning his dream. Excuse me," Porky said. This time Paco knew it was no dream and was speechless. "I wonder if you can help me, even though you have helped me so much." Paco took a second to process what was going on and replied, "Yes, little one, I do help. Me help Porcupine." So Porky explained his plan in the shortest of words he could, and soon Paco went to the chief and had a council with him. After a long deliberation, the chief and the elders came back. Paco relayed the message in English. "We take you east across our lands. Truck, desert, vast." Porky gleamed in excitement. He bowed his head, and they loaded up a boat full of vegetables for him to snack on until they reached a farm on the low banks of the canyon further down the Colorado. Shortly after, he was in a truck that was modified for the rough land ahead of them. Tucked into the back seat, his driver, Wappy, meaning Lucky, sped on through the night. Wappy didn't speak much English, and only really ever spoke when he was singing. Translated from Navajo, he sang one time, "Sweet remedy from the stars, dancing their nightly waltz, reflection of the moonlight in my lover's eyes. Peace be upon you when all things look dim. Remember you're my star when all is faded and grim." Wappy was driving east to deliver a message to one of the remote outposts past the New Mexico border, and only made stops to set up camp. Off the main roads and with a guide, Porky was able to see the desert in its prime. At night, with all the creepy and nasty things that come out, contrasted by the beauty of the sky, filled with stars and deeper than any ocean. There wasn't any hiccups to this leg of his journey, and they safely made it all the way to the eastern edge of the nation. With his stomach full, he was bidding farewell to Wappy when he was handed a gift, a ghost bead necklace, worn to protect him on his travels. He accepted it gracefully, and began to wonder if he should really continue his journey east. Why go away from what is possibly the greatest opportunity of his lifetime? Maybe he was meant to stay in the Navajo land. If not for the rest of his life, maybe until he can realize what it truly matters, friendship, which he found. Also, there's an unlimited supply of corn and potatoes, he presumed. All right, it's settled, he said to himself. He hopped back in the truck with Wappy and settled in for his journey back to his new home. Until next time. Okay, so yeah, that's Porky's Big Adventure. Next project is one I have. It's based on. I kind of got the idea to write an autobiography. It's called Every Dog Has 9 Lives. No, what is it called? Yeah. What did I call it? 9 Lives of a Dog. DAWG. It's based on. It kind of got started all the idea from the dream when it was. Let's see. The dream. Oh, every dog has 9 lives. Because reincarnation. I don't necessarily believe in reincarnation, but kind of a spiritual reincarnation. So I put it 9 lives of a dog. Every dog has 9 lives. So 9 lives of a dog from autobiography, because I felt like there's kind of like, this is my 9th specific kind of, where there were 8 kind of regenerations in my life of what I felt were specific turning points that led me downward a path that I went back up spiritually, like low places, and then coming back up to reality. And this is kind of like where I'm kind of figuring everything out in my real life. So it kind of tied along to that same thing. I didn't originally plan on starting to write anymore. It just kind of happened one day when I just was like, oh, I gotta write. And I've written more in the past couple weeks than I have in the past 3 years or something like that. Well, all my life, but the last 3 years is when I first started to write poetry. And then I've always tried to start little stories, and I've made stories that last probably a minute or 2, maybe 5 at most. This is the longest story I've ever written. It took me about, when did I start it? Maybe a week and a half, a week? I don't know. I worked on it, let's see, maybe 30 minutes times 10. Maybe about 6 hours in total, maybe a little longer, maybe a little less. I don't know. That's just a guesstimate. But yeah, it's gonna, next, as well as the autobiography, which I'll probably never publish. It's more kind of like therapy or something like that for me. May publish it later, but other than that, I'm starting to research Slavic folklore, because I'm half Polish, Croatian, Mexican, 2 different sides. But I kind of wanted to delve in that and kind of go and write a story based on some of that, of Slavic folklore, Polish and Russian, and that whole area of Eastern Europe, and kind of go from there. But yeah, it's kind of fun writing, so.